Russia's most fearsome military claims. You hear about hypersonic missiles, like unstoppable next-gen tanks, but it seems like they're all buckling under the weight of one simple fact. They often run on Western ingenuity. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the real state of Moscow's advanced weapons. We've looked at your collected sources on their supposed tech prowess, and we're comparing the claims against, well, hard facts from the field. Our mission is simple. Give you the details. What American components are actually inside their missiles? Why is their newest tank basically a ghost? And how are simple, cheap defense tactics beating their high-value gear?
Exactly. That dependency, that's really the core issue here. For years, the big fear was this idea of Russia making some huge technological leap. But the evidence we have now proves their advanced weapons are just systematically dependent on foreign electronics, often American commercial stuff acquired illegally. So this isn't really innovation. It's more like sophisticated theft, right?
Yeah.
Using covert networks. It confirms what many suspected: a lot of their edge is borrowed tech.
And this isn't just, analysts guessing. We're going to show you the American chips found inside their missile guidance systems, some that were supposed to be export controlled. We'll talk about why the T-14 Armata tank is an industrial no-show, and how their fancy $10 million electronic warfare systems keep getting taken out by, frankly, simple opposition tactics. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the big one, the weapon that caused so much buzz, the Kinzhal missile. Russia calls it hypersonic. But when you look at the tech, what does the analysis really say?
Yeah, the Kinzhal myth, it falls apart pretty fast under scrutiny. Sources confirm it's basically a modified Iskander-M short-range ballistic missile just launched from a plane. Now, it does hit hypersonic speeds, Mach 5 plus, sure. But the way it gets there, it uses what's called a quasi-ballistic flight path.
Hold on. Mach 5 is hypersonic, so why isn't that cutting edge? What makes that flight path dated, as you put it?
That's the key detail. The quasi-ballistic path means its trajectory is, well, largely predictable after launch. It's more like the ballistic missiles the U.S. had back in the 70s. Real cutting-edge hypersonics think boost-glide vehicles or scramjets. They involve sustained, powered flight in the atmosphere, plus serious maneuverability. The Kinzhal is just a fast ballistic missile dropped from high up. That actually makes it easier to track and intercept than something truly new and maneuverable.
Right, understood. So very fast, but based on older principles. Not a fundamentally new kind of weapon.
Okay, let's talk about the parts inside. This really gets into potential security issues, doesn't it? We hear about dependency, but just how much of these supposedly Russian systems rely on foreign bits, especially American ones?
Well, it's not just a little bit, it's systemic. Field investigations, like the ones RUSI did, showed this massive reliance on foreign microelectronics. They looked at debris from Russian missiles, drones, and found at least 450 different foreign-made components powering these advanced systems. 450, wow, different foreign parts in their top military gear. That scale is something else. Do the sources say where most are coming from?
They do. And this is the part that's most concerning for Western governments. Out of those 450 components, 318 came directly from U.S. companies known for advanced dual-use microelectronics. And get this, 80 of those items were specifically subject to American export controls, meant to be kept out of systems like these.
So this isn't just accidental spillover of commercial parts. These are controlled items being used in their core military hardware. What kind of components are we talking about? Can you give us an example?
Yeah, we can trace it right to the guidance systems. Components illegally sourced from U.S. firms are confirmed inside the Iskander-M missile, which, remember, is the basis for the Kinzhal. Think about specific units: the Badge Guidance Processing System, the Zarya Radar Processing Computer, the SN-99 GPS GLONASS Guidance Unit. They all contain Western chips. We're talking processors, memory controllers, from names like Texas Instruments, Cypress Semiconductor. And because Russia reuses these exact same chips across different weapons, it saves them money, right? Analysts say it's exceedingly likely the Kinzhal itself is guided by these American parts.
If 318 types of components are coming from U.S. firms, how is that even possible? Is Western export control just failing, or are the chips too common to stop?
It's kind of both, but mostly it seems like a failure driven by how complex the global market is.
Yeah.
Russia's gotten really good at exploiting it. They use shell companies, covert networks. They buy through third-party distributors in places outside the main export control group. Lots of activity shifted towards East Asia, China, Hong Kong especially. And the chips themselves, being dual use, are easy enough to buy for supposed commercial reasons. It makes enforcement incredibly tough until, well, they literally show up as wreckage on a battlefield.
Okay, so systemic theft seems to be fueling their air power. What about on the ground? The T-14 Armata tank was supposed to be Russia's next big thing, right? A game changer. So where is it?
Well, its main feature so far is its absence. The T-14 is pretty much a ghost tank. Russia's lost a staggering number of tanks. Sources confirm over 2,750 destroyed or captured, more than they started the war with. And yet, despite those huge losses, not a single T-14 armada has been confirmed in actual combat. None.
They're losing tanks left and right, but they won't deploy their supposedly best one. Why? What's the hesitation? Lack of confidence?
The simple answer seems to be they just haven't managed to mass produce it. Moscow's only built about 20 prototypes, years behind schedule, so keeping it off the battlefield suggests major problems. Either it's technically not ready, maybe too complex to maintain under fire, or, and this seems likely given the component issue, they can't get the foreign parts needed to build more, especially after sanctions kicked in.
So its potential capability is irrelevant if they can't actually build the thing.
Exactly. Theoretical stats don't win battles.
This failure must be forcing them to rethink their long-term plans for armored forces, right? If the Armada isn't happening, what are they focusing on?
Well, leaked documents suggest they're falling back on older, proven designs. There's apparently an ambitious 10-year plan running 2026 to 2036, aiming for over 2,600 new or modernized tanks. But the focus isn't the T-14. It's modernized T-90s and T-72s. It's basically a strategic admission that the Armada project is, at least for now, a failure. And you can see the impact of sanctions forcing them to use domestic parts elsewhere, too. It's fascinating. Analysis of their newer Kh-69 cruise missiles showed a huge jump in Russian components. Like in 2021, only 29% of the parts were Russian. By 2024, it was suddenly 94% Russian.
Wow, that's a massive shift.
It is. They're being forced to source locally, but that rapid shift probably means compromises, right? Re-engineering on the fly often sacrifices the quality you get from those top-tier foreign microchips.
Okay, let's shift from tanks to their high-tech air assets, the drones and stealth stuff. What happened with that S-70 Okhotnik B drone, the Hunter?
Oh, that was a pretty public embarrassment for them. They actually had to shoot down one of their own prototypes. Yeah, the S-70 apparently malfunctioned, and the likely cause was Ukrainian electronic jamming. They recovered the wreckage, and it was quite revealing. Analysts found things like visible rivets, exposed engine nozzles, basic design flaws that really undermine any claim of it being truly stealth. It showed it was operationally immature, a failure on multiple levels, and this vulnerability, it extends to their ground-based electronic warfare systems, too. The systems meant to blind the enemy. Take the R-330ZH Jitel complex, sophisticated bit of kit, supposedly worth around $10 million, designed to jam GPS and cell signals over a huge 30-kilometer area, while sources confirm at least 23 of these Jitel systems have been destroyed, taken out by simple, cheap Ukrainian drone bombers.
23, that's a huge loss rate for such an expensive system. Why are they so vulnerable to basic drones?
Because they're big, stationary targets that have to emit powerful signals to do their job. That makes them relatively easy to find. And analysts say taking out even one provides an outsized operational effect. You knock out a Jitel, and suddenly GPS-guided weapons and friendly drones can operate freely again across a wide zone. It highlights maybe an over-reliance on brute force jamming instead of more subtle network defenses.
Okay, so we've got stolen parts, production failures, expensive gear getting taken out by cheap drones. Let's get to the bottom line. How do these Russian systems actually perform when they go head-to-head with the Western tech they're supposed to beat?
Well, the direct comparisons show a pretty stark gap. Look at the most famous matchup. The U.S.-made Patriot air defense system versus the Kinzhal missile. In actual combat over Kyiv, a Patriot battery successfully intercepted and shot down a Kinzhal. That directly contradicted the hype about Kinzhal being unstoppable. It proved the Patriot could handle high-speed threats, while the Kinzhal's reputation took a serious hit. Performance versus hype, right there.
And this performance gap isn't just about missiles. It affects their own air defense systems, too, the ones they sell internationally.
It does seem so. The S-400 Triumph system, which Russia promotes heavily for export, hasn't fared well. There are confirmed cases where Ukrainian forces attacked an S-400 battery, and the S-400, plus its short-range defenses, completely failed to even detect the incoming missile, just didn't see it coming. Meanwhile, sources indicate Ukraine hasn't reported those kinds of fundamental detection failures with their Patriot systems. It suggests a big difference in radar quality and processing power.
Okay, let's look at the ultimate air matchup, fifth-generation fighters. The U.S. F-35 versus Russia's Su-57. This really comes down to different design philosophies, doesn't it?
Exactly. Modern air combat isn't like the dogfights of old. It's about seeing first and shooting first, usually beyond visual range, or BVR, and that means stealth and sensor fusion are king. The Russian Su-57, well, analysis suggests it's not truly stealthy. Its radar cross-section means it can likely be detected up to 35 miles away. The U.S. F-35, on the other hand, has a tiny radar signature often compared to a golf ball. Plus, its sensor fusion system gives the pilot incredible situational awareness. So the F-35 would almost certainly detect and target the Su-57 long before the Russian pilot even knows the F-35 is there. That first look, first shot advantage is critical.
And even in electronic warfare, where Russia is often seen as having an edge, the West is finding ways to counter them, not just with hardware, but intelligence too.
That's right. That recent massive leak by the Black Mirror Group was huge. They dumped classified documents, photos, technical details, all about Russia's top-secret Krasuka-4 EW system. That leak is basically an intelligence goldmine for Western agencies. It gives them an unprecedented look inside the system's design and how it's used, which makes developing effective countermeasures much, much easier. When your deepest technological secrets end up online, you lose a massive strategic advantage. #outro. So to wrap up this deep dive, what our sources confirm is this. Russia puts on a share of military sophistication, but underneath, there's the systemic reliance on illegally obtained Western parts, major failures in producing key systems like the Armada, and fundamental weaknesses exposed on the battlefield. It really undermines their whole strategic image. It looks like a military built partly on technological deception.
And what does this mean for you, listening? It underscores that targeted sanctions and maintaining a technological edge, especially in those tiny dual-use microchips that guide everything, well, they remain absolutely vital tools for deterrence. We're seeing a clear link between cutting off access to that tech and Russia's struggles.
And that brings us to a final thought. We mentioned sanctions are forcing Russia to boost domestic production, right? Jumping from 29% to 94% Russian parts in some missiles. So the big question looking forward is, will this forced innovation eventually let Russia build truly independent capabilities? Or does losing access to the best foreign chips mean their homegrown systems will always be playing catch-up, always be sort of technologically second-rate? That's something to watch.